Hiya, I'm Greg. I'm a HYROX athlete. I'm a HYROX blogger. I'm an all-round HYROX fanboy. And in this video, I'm going to be explaining to you exactly what is HYROX. So HYROX is a competitive indoor fitness competition that requires a mix of strength and endurance. It bills itself as the World Series of Fitness and is made up of a 1 kilometre run followed by one functional exercise repeated 8 times. So 8 kilometres of running in total and 8 different functional exercises. Those exercises include a 1 kilometre ski, 50 metre sled push, 50 metre sled pull, 80 metres of burpee broad jumps, 1 kilometre row, 200 metre farmer carry, 100 metres of sandbag lunges, and then 175 reps of wall balls. The weights on the sleds and the farmer's carries and the lunges and the wall balls will differ depending on the division that you're in, as will the reps on the wall balls. Those requirements are always the same for every HYROX event, and there's events held all over the world. So when you take part, you wear a timing chip on your ankle, and that tracks pretty much everything that you do in the race. So it will give you not just your finishing time, but help you understand how well you performed on each run, each of the exercises. So you get a lot of data at the end of the race that helps you analyse your performance and gives you something to work on going forward. And this is something I really like. I really like getting into the data, seeing how well I did in certain aspects, analysing my strengths and weaknesses when compared to other athletes, and giving me something to work on for the next race. HYROX was launched by 2 Germans, Christian Tutschka and Olympic gold medalist Mo Förster, and the first event was held in Hamburg in April 2018. The sport is particularly popular with runners, triathletes, CrossFit athletes, OCR competitors, but there's a range of divisions, and that helps to make it suitable for people with a range of fitness abilities. For example, you can do it as an individual and take on all the work yourself. You can do it as a double where you both do all of the running, but you get to split the work on the exercises between you. Or at some events you can do it as a relay, which is a team of 4, and you each take on 2 legs each, with one leg being 1 kilometre run and one of the exercises. The exercises have been designed for most people to be able to do. You don't need a huge amount of skill to be able to do it, and you can essentially turn up on the day having not done those exercises before, and pretty much most people would still be able to do them. You certainly don't need to be an elite level athlete to compete, and there's no time limit on how long it takes you to complete the course. The only thing to consider is if you have enough strength to complete some of the exercises. So the sleds, for example, can feel particularly heavy, so having enough strength to move those is ultimately going to be necessary for you to finish the course. And I should say that most people do have it. You know, obviously everyone takes a different amount of time to do that, but ultimately you do need to be able to move them to be able to complete a HYROX race. And finally, it's worth remembering that at the time of recording, at least you have to be aged 16 or over to enter. You can take pretty much as long as you need to complete the course. The average time, very roughly, is 1.5 hours, though some of the elite level athletes can do it in under an hour, and some people take more than 3. Once you do have your finishing time, it is possible to see how you fare in people in the same age group as yourself. And there are podium awards for the top 3 in each of those age groups. Now, this is, again, something that I particularly like about the event. I'm 41 at the time of recording this, and I like to be able to compete against people of a similar age to me, rather than just feeling like I'm in competition with, you know, guys in their 20s. Having an age group element to it is particularly attractive to me. At the end of each season, HYROX hold their World Championships, which sees the best of the best from each city and each division compete against each other. The number of places up for grabs at each event will differ depending on the venue, the number of participants, the division that you're in. But if you have qualified, you'll receive an email after the event inviting you to claim your space. In terms of the gear that you need for the event, there's not a huge amount that is required. Obviously, appropriate clothing and then appropriate footwear. And from a footwear perspective, you want something really that you are going to be comfortable running in for over 8 kilometres, but then also something that won't slip when you're pushing the heavy sleds. Taking part in HYROX is very safe with a minimal risk of injury. Of course, if you participate in any sport, there is some risk of injury, but it's certainly not vastly increased by taking part in HYROX. As previously mentioned, the exercises have been designed for most people to be able to do perfectly safely. By all accounts, when they were designing the concept, there was several exercises that were considered but then thrown out for safety reasons. So things like box jumps, for example, while most people can perform those perfectly safely, there would still be an increased risk of injury if you have hundreds and hundreds of people doing them every day. Okay, so pros and cons of HYROX. Let's start with the pros. Firstly, it is hugely motivational. Whether you're training to compete in your first HYROX event or whether you're trying to beat your previous time in a previous HYROX event, it can be really motivating. It certainly has been for me. It's given me a lot more meaning to my training, and then it has also helped to motivate me to improve my sleep, my nutrition, and so on. Training for and competing in HYROX has a range of health benefits. It helps you to build your strength and your endurance, helps you to lose weight if that's one of your goals, and the functional exercises help to prepare your body for pretty much anything. There's a really good community that has formed around the sport. All the athletes help each other, help to motivate each other. There's a lot of podcasts and social media accounts set up for the sport. Obviously, there's our channels over on roxlife.com and at the Rox Life on Instagram. And at the events themselves, you get to meet a lot of like-minded, fit, healthy people. Because it is relatively easy to train for and most gyms provide most of the necessary equipment, it is relatively inexpensive to train for, especially when compared to other sports. Because events are held all over the world, it gives you a good excuse to travel to places you otherwise might not have done and meet like-minded locals in the process. Okay, so how about some potential downsides of HYROX? So the first one could be the price. Now, I know I've mentioned this as one of the pros of HYROX, but it can also be one of the downsides. Firstly, there's the cost of entry. Now, that will differ depending on the division that you're in, but there is obviously a cost to the entry. On top of that, there will likely be some travel costs. Now, it depends how far you need to travel, obviously, and whether you need to stay overnight in a hotel, but there is some travel costs to that. And if you want to train in a gym, there's obviously the gym membership fees, and if you don't want to train in a gym but you want the equipment at home, then that can be even more expensive to buy all the necessary equipment. The events can be busy. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you're the type of person that doesn't like particularly crowded indoor spaces, then you may not enjoy the atmosphere and the environment that a HYROX event is held in. It is pretty addictive for some people. Now, that could be a positive or a negative. For me, I know I spend a lot of time thinking about how to improve my training, how to go faster in my next race. It consumes a lot of my mental capacity. And like I say, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if it means that it's distracting you from other elements of your life, then that could be considered a negative. It can be humbling. Now, again, this could be a positive or a negative, but for a lot of people, they find their first HYROX more difficult than they initially imagined it would be, and they end up going slower than they initially expected. For some, that's demotivating and leads them to give up altogether, but for others, that is a motivating element to it and gives them something to work on and improve on. Similarly, by being able to compare your time against other athletes from all around the world, you get to see just how much better some athletes are than you, and for some that can be demotivating. For others, again, it can be motivating because it gives you something to work towards. In my first race, I was much slower than I'd expected to be, but I found that motivating. It's given me something to train for, and now I'm fitter and healthier than I've ever been. So I think that's pretty much everything covered. I hope it's helped. If you do have any questions that we've not covered, then feel free to comment on this video or get in touch through us at roxlife.com and I'll do my best to help you out. If this has been helpful, please give us a like, subscribe to our channel and share with anyone else who you think might be interested in the sport of HYROX. And finally, let me say good luck for if and when you enter your first HYROX event.